Good morning. おはようございます。So, I introduce the first speaker of session 4, Coralie Castel, coming from Bibliothèque Nationale de France, National Library, French National Library. The title of her presentation is illustrated books from the Duret collection at the Prints Department of the French National Library. In Japanese, テオドール・デュレの絵本コレクション、フランス国立図書館版画部門。Please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kaoru. So yes, I will be presenting about the illustrated books of the Prints Department of the French National Library. So I am working as a librarian at the French National Library, but my position is at the Modern and Contemporary Literature Department. So I will be talking about something that is different from what I do on a daily basis, because presently at the French National Library, as some of you may know, I am the only one left as a librarian taking care of Japanese collections. I think some of you know Véronique Béranger, who was taking care of the collection at the manuscripts department, and now she has changed positions. And there are also wonderful Japanese collections in another department, which is the Prints Department. But it has been more than 50 years now since the last curator of these collections, specifically working on Japanese collections, left, and he was not replaced. And when I discovered these collections, and I discovered that there was still plenty of work to do, I tried to get my hands on it a bit, but this is like a side job for me. But as you will see, there is lots of things to do. So I will present what I discovered and what I'm trying to do with the time I have. So I will start with a brief history of the Japanese collections in this department and show some items that are really beautiful just for the pleasure of the eye very shortly because there are so many. And present the current state of description, the data in our catalogs. And then I will present what I'm trying to do to upgrade this data in our catalogs so that they are more easily found by readers, researchers, and some of the questions that I came to wonder about how to adapt Japanese data in at a catalog that is the French National Library catalog that is not made for Japanese collections and even less for illustrated books. So the collection was donated to the French Library by Théodore Duret, so he is. He was an art critic and his first travel to Japan dates back to 1871. So he made this journey to Japan with Cernuschi, who was also an art critic, who gave his name to a famous Asian collection museum in Paris also. So Théodore Duret went there and he didn't know much about Japanese art at that time. He wanted to buy books and little objects such as little statues and daily objects. For books, he starts by buying some by Hokusai, so he could not be mistaken about the quality. But he says that he had some difficulties to buy the books because at the time the books at the booksellers in Japan were in envelopes, in boxes. There was no stands where you could see the images easily, and he could not speak Japanese. He did not get much explanations about the booksellers. That's what he says. And he just asked for images books because what interested him was the images, not the text, not so much the text. And he had an interpreter, so with the help of his interpreter, he has these images books. This was the very beginning of the Meiji era, so the trade of books was not so much at the time about art books towards foreign buyers. The Japanese market would come later with other art sellers such as Samuel Bing or Hayashi Tadamasa in Paris. At that time, it was still at the beginning, so he's like one of the pioneers, and he wanted to bring back a complete overview of the illustrated book history of Japan. So he brings back a mix of very rare and precious books and also much more ordinary ones. So in the end, he arrives in France with 581 illustrated books, and he donated, well, that's 1,392 volumes. This is the whole of his collection. Nowadays, it is difficult to know exactly which one of these books come from this very first journey of 1871, because he acquired later all other books also. He donated his whole collection in 1899, and it became at that time the most prominent Japanese books collection in a European library. And it is said that he was very, very consulted by readers and also artists. That I encountered a testimony of Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, the painter, that would come to the library to see the Duret collection as an inspiration for his graphic works. So a word about the manner of storage of these books, because the library was not adapted to store horizontally the books as they would be in a Japanese library. So the curator of the time in 1901 came up with the idea of a movable binding for preservation of the book and for preserving them, and at the same time enabling them to be in an upright position for storage. So it has advantages and disadvantages because we still use it until now. They are still stored like this in the library right now. So they are protected as they don't move. When we move the collections, the binding of the ehon don't book, but it is very, very tight. And when you want to read it, you have to remove this binding and put it back again. So every time you do it, of course, it can damage the binding. At the moment when a volume is digitized in our present era, most of the time the binding is taken off and we put the book in an envelope, but still in an upright position storage. So there are, as I said, there are advantages and disadvantages, and it's just that the stacks of the Prints Department are not well adapted to store this kind of volumes. It would be better horizontally, but we don't have the room for doing this. So as I said, just for the pleasure of the eye, I would like to show you some of the items. I had to make a choice of a very, very few ones. The Duret collection is now partly digitized, but not all of them yet. This is the older Japanese illustrated book that we have. So actually 3 versions of the Ise Monogatari, and the 3 were printed in 1608. So we have different versions, and some of them digitized, some of them are not. And it would be nice that they are all digitized so that to enable researchers to have a look at the differences between the versions, but this is yet to come. So this is the earliest. It's as a call number, as you can see, 4 and 5, DD for Duret and something, and 4 and 5 because they come at the very beginning of the collection. Another one that I chose is this Ehon Chiyomigusa by Nishikawa Sukenobu is the name of the the artist, dating from 1755. It is really, it is one of my favorites, or I don't know, but one I really like, because of the vivid colors that are hand-painted on the prints. And I did not modify anything of the colors. They're really vivid like this. So when you open a book from this date and you can see these colors, for me, it was not a shock, but I was really happy that I could see this. And as you can see here at the reverse of the cover, there is Chiyomi Gusa or Chiyomi Guso, handwritten. And as I will speak about it more later, but these informations on the book, we are not sure who wrote this. We're not sure who the information comes from. And this is one of the interesting things about the collection, that there are many layers of information, and it's not always easy to trace what information comes from. Another one that I could not present because the illustrated book specialist Roger Keyes wrote that it is one of the most beautiful books ever published. So Shiohi no Tsuto by Akira Kanko, and the artist being Kitagawa Utamaro. This is really beautiful book with the orihon binding and these illustrations. So they are all wood block print, of course, but with also coloring and hand-painted additions of gold and lacquer. This one is digitized, so if you want to see it on the digital library of the French National Library, you can zoom in and see all the details. So, such as for these seashells, and they are really beautiful with lots of details. And as I said, one interesting thing about the Duret collection is that it mixes very precious books and other more ordinary ones. And sometimes we are not exactly sure if Duret knew what he was buying, or, well, he probably knew, but we come with things like this also that are interesting in that there are books that were hand-colored, but not by artists, but rather by previous owners. So this is interesting in knowing where the books come from and through which hands it could have passed, because they are hand-painted, but obviously not by someone who made it in an artistic ambition. Here is another one in the same manner. So there are a few ones like this. And also there are many seals from previous owners on the books, such as this elephant seal, which come in the different manners, is from Ishizuka Hokaishi. And I could identify this thanks to a website that was from the Japanese National Library, but this website is not online anymore. So I don't know what happened, but it was really helpful when I encountered it. A website that had many examples of seals, owner seals. So now about this current state of description of these books in our catalogs. So Duret himself wrote a catalogue called Livre et Album Illustré du Japon. At the time, he made it with the help of a Japanese person, which he thanks in the acknowledgements of the books. One that is Kei Kawada, but we don't have any biographic information about who was this person named Kawada. And he wrote records such as this one that you can see. And my work is to upgrade the data in our online catalog, because all the records of the Duret collections are actually online, but the data come from the Duret, the catalog that Duret himself made. So the Duret catalog was digitized and the information put directly in an online catalog, with the transliteration of that time. Sometimes mistakes, such as dates and mistakes about who is the artist, who is the writer. And also the authorities are scattered because of the names that are not transliterated in our nowadays standards. So the records of all the books are in our catalog, which is huge because the French National Library holds something like 12 million documents. Not all the records are online, but all the records are in Intermark format, which is a form of MARC. And the data had to be adapted to MARC, and the description is very hard to handle, and that makes the books almost virtually inaccessible to the researchers of today. So this is my work. I found that, okay, I have very, very little time. What can I do to upgrade a bit the data? So 2 days per month since 2080, minus the COVID month, of course, I could upgrade the data of 305 books, illustrated books, and still have 276 to do. So the ones that are digitized have data that are a little bit cleaner, but still they have not been reviewed by someone who speaks Japanese. So I tried one at a time to upgrade and make it at least adapted to the norms of today. So how to catalog the collections when you are not art history specialist, not an Edo period specialist, not illustrated book either, but what could I do? So I compare the data with what other library hold and try to identify the books and then correct the data. So I found an example such as this one book. So it has on the binding Hatsugawa Hanzan and this call number. And this is what it looks like on the Duret catalog. So it says Kyoka Yagyo Yakudai and dessinateur Matsugawa Hanzan, author and editor Madanoya. So I have to make it a bit upright with all this information. So you can see that on the online catalog. Before I upgrade it, it looks like this. So it's exactly the same, except that the author has a different form. It is Madonaya, and I don't know where this comes from. So here again, you can see that on the book, there is a card with some information, and I don't know the origin of it. So it's also a matter of tracing back the informations. As I said, there are many layers of different data and many hands that went with the book. So I tried not to lose any of these different steps. And luckily, the Mikaishi and the colophon were really easy to read on this one. This is not always the case. So I can sort the information and compare with what is on the Duret collection. And also, just so you know, this is what it looked like inside. And of course, my main source of help comes from the catalog of early Japanese books. And I was lucky in this case, I could find it straight away, and there was only one title for this. So this is what will help me. But when I read this, I can see that it states that there should be 2 volumes. And in the Duret collection, I only have 1. So what helps me most is that one of the examples of these books has been digitized at the bottom one, the 6th one. So I could make a comparison, and I encountered that what we have in the Duret collections are only the illustrated pages. There were 2 volumes with illustrated pages and also pages with texts, but the Duret collection has they did not keep the text pages and only put the illustrated pages in one book, and also in a different order. And I saw also that this Madonoia or Madonnaia, I could identify and see who it was in the end, thanks to this the information here. So in the end, in our with our mark format and upgraded data, it looks like this. So I always need to inform about the title and the way that it looks like on the book. So it's always a question that I come with, that should I put the title and the name of the author as they appear on the Mikaishi or the colophon, because I don't have the possibility to put all. I keep the old information from the catalogue Duret, because it is important to trace back all the layers of informations, and cite every website that could help me. And also I try to put some indexation, but our reference for indexations are not well adapted to Japanese illustrated books. So this is sometimes very, very poor. Like here is only literary scenes, scènes littéraires, and scènes de mœurs, like customs scenes. So it doesn't say much in the end about the illustrations. So this is the tools that helped me the most. So of course, the catalog of Japanese early books, Japan Search, the National Library of Japan digital collections, and also some other websites that I encountered. So I really rely on other people's resources to upgrade my catalog. And this is how I do it. And I hope that in the end it is correct. For example, I also found websites like this one from the Atomi University. It is a Hyakunin issue collection database. So it helped me a lot to identify the type of Hyakunin issue also books that we have. Yeah, one of the books that I could identify with this website. So as I said, cataloging Japanese old documents with French or European norms in a MARC format raises a lot of questions, and it is very limited. The first thing is that the print department chose way before I arrived to catalog all these illustrated books with a print format and not a book format. And this is because it enables a better description of elements that are such as the type of impression, the type of technique, iconography, indexations. But still, ehons are books, so it is not clear if it would be better to catalog it as in a book format rather than a print format. And this is also interesting because it's inherited from the collector, from Duret himself, his conceptions of the books, that for him it was iconography material, images, rather than being a books. And also, like the main author in the records now is still the artist who made the illustrations, and not the people who wrote the text that are also on the record, but they come later. So I am well aware that this is probably not what a Japanese librarian would say, but still that's the best we can do with the limits that we have. Also about the authors, like normally authority records in our catalog, there is one authority for each form of the name. And this would be impossible for Edo period artists. As you know, they have many pseudonyms. So in the end, I put everything in the same record. But this is not what a French librarian should do. So every time I have to try to adapt and make the the best decision, but it's never always perfect. And also, as I said, the indexing categories, they are not very well suited for this kind of books. Other questions that I always come to my mind, that I have some old kanjis and I am not sure if I could make a difference when the old kanji is different, and then in the end in my record I translate it in the same way. Also the kanji of ga, should I use the old kanji in the records? Because I saw in many library catalogs, Japanese also, that sometimes they use the old one, sometimes not. Also questions about the editors, because sometimes there are many editors for a book, so should I put them all? Sometimes I've seen that they are all on one record and sometimes not. So in the end, what matters is to be coherent for the whole collections, I guess. And this is also one advantages of being the only one working on it. Well, sometimes I would like to have some help and someone to ask my questions to. But in the end, I get to be the only one who decides. So I hope I decided the right thing. And what we could do to improve it, of course, would be to introduce some classifiers that would be native classifiers for the collections, such as thematic descriptors for the type of books that would be suited to Japanese illustrated books, and also the material descriptors that would be with a Japanese vocabulary. So I wanted to make a call for research to have someone at the library who could help me with this. It has not been published yet, but I hope that soon we can publish this call for research and enhance then the data with more Japanese native vocabulary. And this is it, I think. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Coralie. So based on her experience, many occasions for Ogura-san, Koyama-san.
Kawada means Kawada Koichiro, and he was a kind of head of Bank of Japan. The reason is, I guess, is the Kawada Koichiro, because I mentioned the French businessman who lived in Yokohama, Sartre, I think Philippe Marie Sartre. He had Kawada Koichiro's summary about all the Japanese books. So I think Kei Kawada means Kawada Koichiro.
But well, thank you very much for this information first. This is very helpful, but was he in France? Because from what I can read in the Duret collection, it says that he made his catalog back in France, helped by someone who was named Kawada.
Yeah, I think probably maybe in Japan, but Kawada Koichiro, I don't know, he went to France.
Okay.
The second point is, the owner's seal. You mentioned Ishizuka Hokaishi. Ishizuka Hokaishi, quite a well-known collector, because I have studied Saito Geshin, and Ishizuka Hokaishi is a friend of the Saito Geshin. And also Ishizuka Hokaishi has got a couple of names, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was really interesting, and just the sort of thing that I'm grappling with as well. Just a couple of things you said about a database of Zoshoin that had disappeared. There is one on the National Institute of Japanese Literature website.
Yeah, another one? Okay.
Which is, well, it was there a couple of weeks ago. I don't think it's disappeared, which is very, very good. And you can search on format, color. If you know it's got an elephant in it, you can search on elephants. It's brilliant. And the other thing, you put up a list of sources that you were consulting.
Yeah, a very, very short one.
That you know about the pre-Meiji cataloging guidelines that the North American colleagues have put together, which is very detailed and very useful.
Yes, and there are many times also that I don't find what I'm looking for in this catalog, and I search other ones, yes, also.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. And my question would be very practical, maybe. You have many books that you have to kind of identify. And in the process, do you find any items that you struggle with and you set aside and say, okay, maybe that's for later. And maybe you have some stories to tell about such items. And what do you do? What is your strategy to identify these very difficult items? Or everything is maybe straightforward? I'm not sure.
Yes, indeed. I can remember one that was, it looked like it was several parts of different books that were binded together, and there was no title, there was no colophon, and it was also very, very dirty and very hard to read. And yes, I also have to be practical in that I have very little time. So what I do is a brief description, material description. I just state what I see, what I can see, and also trace the information that is in the catalog, and mentioning that maybe it is not so reliable since when you compare it to what I have in hand. And that's all that I can do for the moment. Maybe when it is all finished and all digitized, we can make it better later, of course. But at the moment, I just stick to what I can say about it and no more. But this concerns a very, very few number of it. I think from the 300 and something that I have encountered until now, might be less than 10 that I could not identify at all.
So maybe there could be another question, but yeah.
Just a small question. Are those bindings acid-free?
Yeah,
cardboard? Yes. Because they're very old, so maybe they weren't aware of the problem at that time.
Interestingly, it's not a thing that I read about, because there were many other curators that were not Japanese book specialists, but they were saying that this binding is horrific, that we should change it at once. They were not so much talking about the acid paper, but more that it's really, really tight.
But actually, it's easy to store in boxes, acid-free, but it doesn't take more space.
Yes, I know.
More time to do.
But this is not my decision.
So we go to the next presentation. So you have something to. Thank you. Thank you again, Coralie.